Hello everyone, welcome to AppDev channel. In the last video, we talked about implementing the authentication feature and how we can secure your microservices by redirecting the users to the login form that is provided by default by the Spring Boot security module by creating different users, all those things we have seen it, right? In today's video, we will talk about what is authorization and how to implement this feature by using the Spring Boot security module on how we can secure your microservices by authorization. Okay, so what is mean by authorization? So we know that authentication is about identifying the logged in user, right? So once the user is identified, what the action the user is going to do, whether user is authorized to do that particular action. Suppose if the user is making a call to fetch all employees microservice, once the authentication is successful, whether the particular user is authorized to do that transaction to invoke that particular microservices or not. That is what we have to find out by using the authorization technique. Suppose there are a couple of roles like there are employees in the organization, there are HR departments in the organization, there is a finance department in the organization, right? Suppose fetch all employee details cannot be invoked by the employee because employee has to see only his particular employee details but not all employee details. So suppose if an employee, particular employee of an organization is making a call to fetch all employee details microservice, then it should be stopped, it should be prevented. Similarly, HR department employees should be able to see each employee details and also the all employee details, right? So they are acting basically as admins. So admins should be able to see all employee details and also the each employee details. So so those employees or the HR department or the admins will be provided with some roles. So based on those roles, they will be identified whether uh, that particular user will be able to access the particular microservice or not. So the authorization is all about what action the user is going to do after authentication. That is what it is finding out by authorization. So we will take one example, okay, that employee microservice which we have used in the earlier example, we will try to extend that, okay. So that will be having three independent URLs, okay. Employee wish, okay, this is one of the URL. This should be accessible whether the user is logged in user or the guest user, and whether user is having any role or whatever it is the role, right? That should be accessible. But fetch all should be accessible only for the admin, and fetch by employee ID should be accessible both for employee role and admin role. Fetch all should not be accessible for the employee role. This is the example one which we are going to implement to know the details about the authorization feature that is provided by the Spring Boot microservices to secure your microservice. Okay, now let's go to our application. Okay, here if you see, uh, this is our application configuration, right? Here we have used the authentication manager builder to configure the authentication feature. Similarly, if you want to configure the authorization feature, there is another method available that is coming from the web security adapter, web security configurer adapter. But it won't take the authentication manager, but it takes a class that manages the authorization. That class is HTTP security. Okay, HTTP similarly, authentication manager is manages authentication feature based on this configuration for your microservices. HTTP security is the class that manages authorization feature based on the configuration which we provide in this configure method. Okay, so let's configure it now. HTTP dot. Earlier we have used the different techniques, right? In memory authentication, JDBC authentication, LDAP authentication, all those things are there. Now, if you want to authorize the request, we have the authorize request method here. Okay, authorize request. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to, okay, before coming to the security, let me go back to controller and implement those two endpoints as well. Okay, what is that public string? Uh, say hello. This is my method. Return welcome to Spring Security application. Okay, and this will be having request mapping as /wish. Okay, let me implement another one as well, and it should return only the employee details, specific employee details. Get employee. It takes a parameter employee ID from the path parameter. So what is that path variable we have to use, right? Get path variable string ID, and it has to call employee service, return employee service dot fetch employee by ID. This method we have to create it in employee service, and I'll give the request mapping as /fetch/id. Okay, now let me go there to employee service and create this method. Here let me return some dummy employee object, new employee of king I'll give. Okay, that's it. Okay, employee service is ready, controller is ready. Okay, now let me execute this. Okay, there is some error. Okay, let me comment this for now. The authorization feature. Let me restart this. So what are the services we have in our employee controller? Wish, fetch all, and fetch by ID, right? Now let me go there and hit fetch wish service. See, the moment I invoke the wish service, by default it is taking me to the login page. Okay, now if I log in admin password, it is taking me to the wish service and it is giving the response. Similarly, okay, let me log out from here and search, invoke the other service as well. What is the other service? Employee slash fetch by ID, right? I'm passing one as ID. Okay, again it is taking me to the login page. Now I'll invoke admin. I'll try to log in with admin. So it is giving me the one user detail, one employee detail. So it all, how is it working currently? All the microservices needs some kind of authentication. Okay, but according to our requirement, what we have to do, which service should be accessible for any user. It doesn't need the user to be authenticated, but currently it is working as a, it needs some authentication, so we have to modify that. Okay, in order to modify that, we have to go to our configuration class and we have to modify the customize the configuration here. So now let me uncomment this. so that we can configure authorization as per our requirement. So after calling authorize request, we have to configure the authorization based on the request URL or the microservice URL, right? So to configure based on the microservice URL, we have this one. Ant matchers is a method that is available. So for that one, we have to pass a URL. Okay. Say for example, employees slash which I want this to be permitted to all users, right? So permit all is the method. Then and matches, there is another rule, right? For us, fetch all should be available only for admin. Fetch ID should be available for both roles, right? So let me try that now. Fetch ID slash employee slash fetch by ID, right? So I give star here. So fetch ID should be available for both employee and admin roles, right? So there is a method available has any role. Okay. Here you can mention n number of roles. Employee role, admin role. Okay. So that is about second rule. The third rule what we have and matches slash employee slash fetch all. This should be available only for admin role, right? Yep. So after that, we have to have the default login form. Okay, that's all. So which will be available irrespective of the user type or the role type, whether it is a logged in or guest. For all users, it will be available by using the permit all method. Fetch by ID, whatever it is there after fetch, that will be available for both the roles. If it is only fetch all, that will be available only for admin role. Okay. Now let's try to hit that URL and see it whether it is working as per our requirement or not. Okay, now let me go ahead and hit fetch all. See, fetch all now is asking me to log in, right? So fetch all should be available only for admin user, but not for employee. Now let me log in with employee and it should be prevented. See this 403 forbidden error. So which means that employee is not able to, is able to authenticate. Okay, he is able to log in. Session is created in the security, but he is not authorized to invoke the fetch all service. 403 access forbidden error. Okay, now let me log out from here and log in, hit the fetch all service again and log in with admin user. As per our requirement, it should be allowed, right? See this admin user logged in and able to see all employee details as per the authorization rule. So our authorization rule, this one is working fine, right? So now let's hit this one. So what is the other rule? Fetch by ID, right? Okay, before hitting it, let me log out and log in again. Before login, let me hit that fetch by ID service, employee slash fetch by ID. It is again asking me to log in, right? Now what I'll do is I'll give admin password. So it is giving me the details. So admin user is able to log in and see the particular employee details. Let me log out and see by employee user by hitting fetch one. So it is again asking me to log in password. So employee user is also able to see the particular employee details. So this is also working fine for us. This one, yep. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll do the logout again. Otherwise, I don't do the logout. Now, currently employee user is there, right? Now, let me hit the wish service now. Wish. See, employee user logged in, wish service is there. Uh, let me log out. Okay. Let me hit the fetch all service again with admin user. Okay. So he is able to see the fetch all. Let me hit the wish service now. So admin user is able to see the wish service response. Now let me log out, and without login, let me hit the service wish service again. So this is going as guest user service. See, guest user is also able to see the wish service response. Employee user, the user with employee role, the user with admin role, all those types of users able to see the wish service without login, right? So that's all about the first example which we wanted to see, which we wanted to implement. Okay. Now let's say, for example, my default URL, wish URL like this. Okay. Whatever it comes after employee, I want to permit all. Okay. Wish service endpoint is like this. Now let's see what happens. Okay. Employee wish, it is coming up fine. Fetch all. See this? Fetch all is also coming up without, it is not asking for login, because the moment you mention the least privileges access or the authorization at the top, it will be evaluated first. So the employee star, right? Employee fetch all is coming under the employee star. So it is evaluated. The moment it is evaluated, all the remaining rules will not be evaluated. So it is not asking to log in again. So it is directly giving the response back. So in such cases, what we have to do in order to resolve this problem, the most access privileges configuration should be at the top. The most access privileges, this is the most one, right? This is available only for the admin user. This is the having the most privileges. I mean, the constraints are more on this one. This is having less constraints compared to this, because this is available for users, but only for the logged in users. But this is available for all users. This is having the less constraints. Less access privileges should be at the bottom, most access privileges at the top. Okay, that is one rule which we have to remember while configuring the access rules, authorization rules. Okay, now let me trigger the request. Now we will see. Okay, earlier fetch all is allowed, right? Now it should not be allowed. See this? Again it came to the working state. Now admin fetch all is coming up. Let me log out and see whether the wish service is working fine for all users without authentication. Okay, employee slash wish, right? See, this is working fine. It is not asking to log in. So this is another point. This is a point which we have to remember. We have to mention the most access privileges should be configured at the top. Okay. Now that's all about this example. Okay, let's go back to our another example which we wanted to implement. This is the example 2, right? So if you see here, employee wish should be available for all users, all roles. Similarly, earlier we segregated the fetch all and fetch by id based on the roles, but in this example I don't want to segregate them based on the roles. Okay, in this requirement I want these services to be available irrespective of the role type, but the user should be logged in. Okay, only for logged in users it should be available. If the user is not logged in, it should not be available. For the guest users or the logged in users, only the wish service should be available. Only for the logged in users, the fetch all and fetch ID should be available. Okay, irrespective of the user type, whether it is an employee user, whether it is an admin user, for any role, it should be available. Okay, that is the example which we are going to do it now. Okay, let's see it now. Okay, see this. Okay, let me comment everything from here. Let me start it again. This is our example one, right? Now let me take our example two. Here again, http dot authorize requests, right? Now on this one, again I have to compare the URL matching, right? So ant matchers is there. Here it is the variable list of arguments, right? So here I can specify anything, any number of string arguments, right? So ant matchers is there. So what is my requirement? Employee slash fetch all and employee slash fetch by ID. Okay, all these things, these URLs should be available only for the logged in users, right? So there is a method available, authenticated. So the moment you call authenticated, these two URLs will be accessible only for the authenticated users. Okay, remaining all URLs, whatever is there, they will be available for non-authenticated users as well. Okay, again we have to configure our default login form, right? Okay, now let me hit this, we'll see it. Okay, now it should not be distinguishing by role type based on our authorization, right, rule. Now let me hit this. Okay, employee wish. Okay, let me see whether any session is there. Okay, let me log out. Now let me hit the employee wish, whether it is available for guest user or not. Yes, it is working fine. Now let me hit employee fetch all. It is asking me to log in, so it is fine. Now let me log in with admin and password. Yep, admin user is able to access it. Fetch all, right? Now let me log out and hit the same fetch all service again. Now let me hit employee. Earlier it was not accessible with our first example, right? Now let me hit the employee. See, this employee is also able to access the fetch all now, right? So this is one example. Any authenticated user will be able to access the URL with this configuration. Let me hit this fetch ID as well. Fetch by ID. So employee is able to see the fetch by ID. Let me see fetch by ID with the admin user as well. Let me log out and see. Okay, let me hit this one, fetch by ID, and log in with admin. See, admin user, employee user, whatever the user, if they are just authenticated, they will be able to access all these URLs. The remaining all URLs will be accessible, which are not specified here, right? They will be accessible even for the guest users as well. Okay, say for example, I have some 100 URLs. Okay, out of 100, 70 URLs should be accessible only for the logged in users. Remaining 30 URLs should be accessible for the guest users also. Okay, along with the logged in users. So In such cases, what we have to do, all 70 URLs I have to mention it here, right, or in a Java file. So mentioning all the URLs in a constant file or in a Java file and reading them here or directly hard coding all the 70 URLs will be a cumbersome process, right? In real time, what we have to do is we have to configure all those URLs in a file and read the URLs from that file and place it here as a substitute and pass it as a ant matchers. Okay, that is the third example. Pass it as an argument for this ant matchers. Okay, that is the third example which we are going to see it now. Okay, so let me comment this as well. What I'm going to do is example 3. Now first I'll do in the static folder, I'll create a file. Okay, what is that file name? Secure services.json. Okay, this is a JSON file and it will be having only the file resource URL names. That's it. Okay, as it will be having the list of files, we have to mention it as a JSON array. Okay, so what are the URLs? Employee slash fetch all employee slash fetch by id, right? Fetch whatever is there after id, that we can use it here. Okay, so these are the two URLs currently I want to configure in this JSON file, and I want to read these URLs and give it as an argument to the ant matchers method. Okay, now I have to read that file now, right? So let me create a method here, private, and it should return whatever is the return type. We will see it private. For now, let me put void here. Okay, get secure services list. This is the method I want to write, and this method should read that file from the class path and return the list of file names that are there. Okay, so if you want to return, if you want to read a file, right, and that is a JSON file, so we have to use the input stream and we have to use the object mapper to convert the JSON file into an object. Okay, so let's use it. Okay, so there is a class available, type reference dot class. If you go there, there is a method available, get resource as stream, that is useful to read the file from class path. Where it is, static dot secure services dot json. Okay, if you, I mean, we have to get that into the input stream, file stream. Okay, once you got the data into a stream, we have to use the object mapper to convert that stream into an object, right? So let's create an object mapper here. And what we want to do is we want to convert this stream into a list of strings subject, because list of file names, right? These are all strings. So list of strings we want to create. List of strings URLs list. Okay, new array list. Okay, next what I'll do is mapper dot read value of, where is my stream? I have to use the stream, right? File stream. Okay, what is the variant of the read value we are using? stream, this one, right? File stream. And what is the second argument? We have to convert that into the list, right? Array list dot class. So that will be stored in the array list now. URLs list. Okay. The moment I add, I have to handle the exception. Okay. So URLs list is there now. Okay. Now I want to, because here this ant matches accepts. Okay, let me go here and see http dot authorization authorize request dot ant matchers will take a variable number of string arguments. So in order to pass the variable number of string arguments, we cannot pass the list here. Okay. Instead, we can pass a string array where a method accepts variable number of arguments. So we have to convert this list into a string array URLs list, right? URLs list dot, we have to convert this string, list into string array. So let's go back and use the stream, and for each element we have to call the toArray, and we have to create an array element, string array element, using this string array new operator. Okay, this is the method reference, right? So this will give me URLs. Okay, that's it. And I have to return this URLs now. Okay, so if I have to specify the return type now, right? So string array is the return type. So I have to call this method as part of ant matchers. Okay, and all these URLs should be available for only authenticated users, right? That is the configuration which we wanted to do. So again, same default login we have to configure it, right? Now let's check. This is all done now. We are reading the file and we are converting that list into the string array, and we are passing that string array as an argument to AND matchers. So whatever URLs that are written from there, they will be given to this AND matchers, and they will be authenticated, accessible only for the authenticated users. Okay, that is the example which we are going to try now by testing. Okay, application started up fine. Okay, now let me log out and see. This is similar to earlier example only, just because we added a new file to capture the list of resource URLs, we are testing it again. Okay, admin password, there is a problem. Okay, let me hit the fetch all now. Okay, I have to do the logout. Let me hit the fetch all initially. Okay, admin password. See, this admin password is available for admin, fetch all is available for admin password, admin user, right? Now let me try the fetch as well. Fetch is also available for admin. Now let me log out and try fetch all again with employee user. Okay, so the employee user is also able to access the fetch all. Fetch also able to access. So let me log out now. So any user who is authenticated, they are all able to access the fetch all and fetch by ID. Now let me hit the employee wish whether this is available. Yes, this is available irrespective of the login, right? So all our configuration which we have seen in example 2 is working fine with example 3 as well. Just because we are, the only difference is we are reading the list of resources instead of hard coding it from here, we are reading it from a file. So in future, if you have identified or if you have created one more service that is should be available only for the web user, the logged in users, right? Like this employees slash some dummy service, okay, or save, okay. So that will be available only for the logged in users, okay. Just by modifying this JSON file, we don't have to modify the class file here, Java source code, right? Okay, let's see that also. Okay, we'll see that. Let me just add a save service here at okay, public void or string save employee at path variable. Okay, and that is not required, right? Okay, this is just for testing purpose. Return save completed. I'll mention the URL as request mapping slash save. That's it. Okay. Now, whatever the URL I am having in those property files like slash employees slash wish slash fetch all slash fetch slash save, right? So they should be running behind only for the authenticated users. Okay, let's see it now. What I'll do is I'll do the logout and see it. Now I'll do employee slash save now. Employee slash save. See this. This is accessible only for the authenticated user. Save completed, right? So we don't have to modify the Java source code just because we are implementing a new microservice or we are identifying a microservice URL to be accessible only for the authenticated users. We just modify the JSON file. That's it. All the files URLs mentioned there will be captured by the AND matches, and the authenticated authorization rule will be applied to all those URLs that are read from that file. Okay, so this is about the authorization technique, the basic authorization technique which we generally use in real world applications. That's all for today. We will meet with the other concept in the Spring Security module in the next videos. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Please give it a like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.